Hello and welcome everyone to an episode of the Warhammer Meta Chasers. My name is Paul, your host. I'm joined by Adam Camilleri.
Oh, g'day.
Apologies to everybody. This is just going to be an audio file. We're not having the video right now. We are reeling from our World Championships of Warhammer experience. Adam, you just got home like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, pretty much my jet lag meant that I was just like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be asleep when we want to record the usual show, but I've done all the notes. We've got everything good to go. So let's just pipe it while I'm awake. And here we are. Here we go.
Well, we're going to look back. This is a little bit different this time. We're going to look back from the previous weekend and talk about the World Championships of Warhammer. Dustin will be back next week, unable to join us this week, but we wish him the best. And anybody out there celebrating the U.S. holiday this week, I hope y'all are having the best time as well. Getting to spend some time together with loved ones or spend some time with us, and we appreciate it.
Indeed. Hopefully we are loved ones also, because why not reach that high? But yeah, this is a little snapshot of what you can get from the part twos of our show, because we're going to be doing an extensive World Championships of Warhammer recap, and then we're also going to be covering the Leicester Super Major that's coming up this weekend and Gonghammer from Wollongong, New South Wales. I'm going to say New South Australia. That's not a thing.
I was going, yep. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you would have just nodded along. I could have just said anything there. New Drop Bear Wonderland.
So the World Championships of Warhammer was in Atlanta, Georgia, which, we went to some different places this time. I hope you enjoyed some of the local scene hanging out.
Dude, Fox Brothers Barbecue rocked my world.
268 players, 8-round event. And this event was, if you remember, had to be qualified for. You had to win a ticket to get here. That means you had to win some type of category in majors all around the globe, independent events that were also collaborating with Games Workshop. So everyone here is some form of champion of a champion or a winner in some category.
Twas the big dance, so to speak. And the ELO, apparently, so someone did the ELO rankings, which is a way to, tell if somebody is a good player, like a very good player. It's the same ranking mechanism they use for chess and chess mastery, etc. And apparently this was possibly the highest ELO event in ever. I don't know if it was compared to last year's one, but it was definitely higher than pretty much any other event this year in the world. So you can consider this to be as stacked as it gets.
You've got some extra data here. So let me run down like the Imperial Superfaction here, and then we'll talk about maybe some of the placings. Now, we got 2 Imperial Agents, 15 Sisters of Battle, 9 Custodes, 6 Cult Mechanicus, 26 Astra Militarum, 7 Grey Knights, 9 Imperial Knights. There were 9 kind of vanilla Adeptus Astartes, 9 Dark Angels, 8 Space Wolves, 17 Blood Angels, and 3 Black Templar. I don't know if we want to break this down before we keep moving on.
No, let's do the whole faction breakdown, then we'll go back through it.
Sounds good. So 7 Chaos Space Marines, 10,000 Suns, 11 Death Guard, 9 World Eaters, 10 Demons, 3 Chaos Knights. On the Xenos side of things, we had 29 Necrons. That is a chunk. That is what?
That's a whole chunk. It's 10%. Over 10%.
More. It's like 13% or whatever. Necrons, 26 Astra Militarum, 17. Oh, I'm sorry. What? I jumped.
Back to orcs.
Sorry.
Back to orcs.
Yeah. 6 orcs, 16 Tau, 10 Votan. Look, I'm doing something else. I'm reading something else.
I know. This is Dustin's job.
This is why he's the master. In the Hive Mind, we've got 13 Tyranids, 7 G-Stealers, Eldari, 6 Drukhari, 11 Eldari, bringing that podium to Necrons at 29, Astra Militarum 26, Blood Angels 17, Tau 16, and Adeptus Sororitas at 15. We break open who actually came in the top 10 overall.
We did.
We got 4 Astra Militarum, 1 Custodes, 1 Adeptus Astartes, 1 Adeptus Mechanicus, 1 Grey Knights, 1 Chaos Space Marine, and 1 Tyranid. So a pretty healthy meta, if you ask me, especially when you got those outliers creep in, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so if outside the top 10, outside Astra Militarum in the top 10, everything else is a single and of a very good spread. Like Okay, our Space Marines Tyranids, Grey Knights, Adeptus Astartes, so not Dark Angels or Blood Angels, which has been the norm for the longest time in Space Marines, being the only, apart from when Black Templars were insanely busted or toxic. It's been pretty much either it has not been the vanilla Astartes variety topping things out since last WCW. When we had, John Lennon go second with the Ultramarines Vanguard. And once again, it was a Ultramarines Vanguard getting up there. Actually, was it? Or was it the Ironstorm? I can't remember. But it was, regardless, it was Ultramarines. Yeah.
But you were there. I was
Correct.
there. So we know what took it down. But if I
did.
just told you that an Imperial force took it down and you did not know which one it was, what would you have chosen?
Astra freaking Militarum would have been the only possible pick based on the stats and what we know was because Astra Militarum was 6 of the top cut 16. So after the shadow round going into the final top games, there was 6 of the top 16. And so all the money should and in all logic would be on Astra Militarum, and from the top 10 should and would be on Astra Militarum. And yet they did not. They did extremely well across the board, but they did not bring back the gold. Now, I've gone a little bit further with the stats here because it was for WCW, and maybe I'll do this more often for some of the larger events on our part 2s. But I've gone through each and every faction that we did stats for. So that's each and every faction in the freaking game. And I have put in a number for the top placed player playing that faction at the World Championships of Warhammer. So I'm just going to run those down for you very quick, and then feel free to jump in, Paul, if it's something to talk about. But of the 2 Imperial agents, the top placed of those 2, so one of them has some kind of bragging rights on the other, but 211th was the top placed Imperial agent player. This is no surprises. No surprises.
Well,
and
I'm not laughing at the placement really, or the players for whatever, but this is, I think, a codex that needs a little bit of luck, and luck was probably in real short supply when you're dealing with that many great players.
Correct. Yeah, correct. We're dealing with the best players in the world. Sisters of Battle, which did have 15 in attendance, so it's quite high faction numbers wise. 18th was the player in that said faction, which is a very big surprise. So a lot of people thought this was going to be a race of Sisters versus Guard at this event. And Sisters did not show up anywhere near as strongly as Astra Militarum did. And that's been one of the big notable tales coming from this event. One of the things that I'll say about it is that Sisters versus Guard, I believe, is very Guard favored at the moment, because a lot of the Sisters lists are just Guard lists with less utility. You take your triple castigators, you take your double or triple immolators, you take your double or triple exorcists, and all of a sudden you had the same amount of battle tanks and damage dealing tanks as Guard do, but Guard have way more waves of nonsense to go and score all their secondaries, deny your primary, tie you up, and control you. And so I think
the drop stuff too, it's
correct. Yep. Aquilons, Scions as well, coming from reserve, just blowing up your stuff, in addition to having Catachans, Chimeras, Sentinels, all those little utility units that are just so good value at the moment. And Sisters pretty much have none of those. So yeah, I do think that's where Sisters are struggling at the moment, and it really showed at WCW. Custodes. Next. Number 1. I'm sure everyone knows by now, but the best ranked Custodes players came in first and won the whole dang thing. We're going to unpack his list in a moment. Cult Mechanicus, or Adeptus Mechanicus, 7th was the top place there, being Richard Siegler, who did extremely well, making the top 16. Astra Militarum came in second.
Lost to John Lennon.
Correct.
Which is, in match thing, that they're in the same club, they play quite frequently, and that could have gone either way. I bet that was a huge moment for John too to break through.
It was. Didn't end up being that massively close on the score, but I think John won by about 15 points. So I think he probably ran away with it towards the end of things, which is, they know exactly what to do against each other also. So, and I'm sure the mission and first and second came into account there too. Grey Knights came in 5th. Their top player came in 5th, which I think is a stellar performance for Grey Knights, especially on the World Championship tables, the Games Workshop tables, which can be a little bit more firing lane heavy, so gun heavy, and a lot of the Grey Knight armies out there really struggle to crack some of the more mechanized elements in the meta. So the Sisters and the Astra Militarum, like they don't really go in there and kill Lehman Russ's Rogal Dawns from range. They kind of need to charge them and punch them to guarantee their death, or like put in 4 of their 5 or 6 Dread Knights to kind of get the job done, and it gets a bit icky.
Grey Knights have not really been in the conversation. Like they
That's
people know
correct.
they exist, but they have not really made their way
Yeah.
into the conversation, hot and heavy as of late.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. They've been a middle or top middle faction, but they haven't really pushed the envelope, so to speak, or really been threatening at the top tables. But here we have a player who absolutely did that. Imperial Knights is next. Their top player came in 32nd, which I think is probably admirable. Doing pretty well there with Imperial Knights into what I think is quite a hostile meta for Imperial Knights. Into the Space Marines, naturally, Adeptus Astartes came in 4th, as we said, one of them made the top 10. Dark Angels, now here is a huge one. 75th is the best Dark Angel. I am very surprised by that personally. But what do you think of it, mate?
Okay, I mean, Dark Angels, they were on a bit of a tear during the first and I guess going into middle part of this year, but I guess some players have kind of shifted away from them
Mm,
to favor the Astra Militarum. I think this is representative of people meta jumping a bit. I'm not saying that is a
yeah.
bad thing. I just think that there's a a more dangerous fish, and players
Mm.
are riding that fish.
Well, just think that if you're not going to win a shooting war with some of these tank heavy shooting armies, you need to be fast. And Dark Angels are not that, unfortunately. They are a relatively slow, very durable, very polished army, very well balanced. But one thing they aren't is quick. And so I think most
Mhm.
people, and what did better here was the more aggressive pressure style of Space Marine, unless you had utter shenanigans on your side, like the Vanguard and the and stuff like that does. But Space Wolves are next. They had 21st was their top place finish, and then
And this is
Blood
Battle
Angels.
Point, right? Because the Spaceful player actually, I think, came in what, second overall, like when you
Yeah,
factor
correct.
in the appearance and everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is purely based on generalship. And then Blood Angels came in 11th, so just missing out on the top 10. So both of the go first punchy armies did better than the Dark Angels. In addition, Black Templars came in 63rd, so they also did better than Dark Angels.
Wow.
So pretty
Smaller
much
player pool too.
Dark Angels was the worst performing Space Marine at WCW, and I'm ashamed of you all.
Well, there was
Uh,
also, like the order of the missions and the terrain layout was something that was kind of kept, uh, I don't want to say secret, but revealed to the players at the same time.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
no further knowledge. So people brought just a usually just well-rounded list that they thought they would do well on the terrain layouts, but didn't know what the terrain layouts were going to be each day or in what order, which I think definitely not a bad way of going about it. In fact, it leaves a lot of things up in the air and makes people take, I guess, less optimum lists and have to rely on their generalship a little bit more, which I think is good. I think it's good. But
Same
yeah,
pieces of terrain, but just a different configuration each
exactly
day.
right. Yeah,
And
correct.
I think that may have caused a little bit of separation in the field earlier on than
Dude,
maybe some folks were expecting.
absolutely. So, on reflection, talking to players, they're of the opinion that day one was extremely good for melee armies. Day two was extremely good for shooting armies, and day three and four were kind of either way, which I think is actually kind of an amazing way of doing it, especially when you think things are going to be gun heavy. Not knowing, not I'm not assuming that they had this foreknowledge or had this impression, but that was the impression from the players that the meta was going to be very gun heavy. Now things are going to be very gun heavy. Well, you want to give melee armies a chance to make it out of day one, right? So you put the one that's harder for the shooting armies in day one.
Gotcha.
Chaos Space Marines came eighth. Was Derek with his CSM Horde, so very similar to what he won Nova with, which of course we got to commentate. Thousand Suns came in 14th, and then Death Guard in 15th, and World Eaters in 13th. And I thought that was utterly amazing. So World Eaters 13th, Thousand Suns 14th, Death Guard 15th. The fact that they all lined up like that, I was like, no freaking way. I went back and double checked. I'm like, yes, they did.
Oh, it's even like
Couldn't believe
9,
it.
10, 11 as far as representation.
Exactly right. Exactly right. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, there was 9 World Eaters, 10,000 Suns, 11 Death Guard, and then they went in that order. So the least represented did the best at 13th with World Eaters. The middle one, 10,000 Suns, they were 14th, and then 11 Death Guard at 15th. So the more you took, the less well you did, but only by an increment of 1. So who cares?
Well, look at how that lined up. Like, wow,
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. Demons came 31st, and Chaos Knights came 70th.
I think
So
that's good for demons.
I think that's great for demons. A top 50 finish at this event is superstar stuff for me. I'm of the opinion if you get a top 50, you're an absolute you're doing so great. Top 30 is absolutely legit. Like you could win pretty much any super major in the world with what you took and how you did. Then a top 10 is you're good
A
enough
more
to.
stable meta favors demon players because they can choose what to take.
Correct. A more solved meta. The more solved the meta gets, you're absolutely right, brother. The better the demons get because there's such a big deviation between taking this graded demon or that graded demon. Like if you know it's just going to be gun, 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 Bellacor's off his chops, amazing. If it's all melee, Bellacore doesn't do one half of a dang thing. Take anything else. So yeah, you're exactly right. Chaos Knights only having 3 players in representation coming in 70th, I still think is totally fine. So Imperial Knights definitely did the better here, coming in 32nd though.
And with Chaos Knights too, like Chaos Knights are represented in lots of the Chaos Space Marine forces.
Correct. Most of the, I think we called 2 Death Guard games at the event, and both of them had brigands, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Xenos Necrons came in 12th. Orcs in 29th, so well done, Orcs. You made it to what I believe is one of the big breakpoints in that top 30. Tau came in 38th, so Tau did not do amazingly. A lot of people would have thought Tau would thrive in this environment, being so gun heavy and quite dynamic in a lot of the retaliation Cadre builds as well. But I don't want to say they underperformed, but they just didn't shine. Because top 38th is still very respectable at this event. Like top 50 is still very respectable, but 38th a little bit less polished. Or they didn't really pop off because Votan, who a lot of people see as just like a lot of the time a worst Tau in a lot of situations, came in 22nd and did extremely freaking well.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So it's Tau, but with less tricks, but arguably, they have Terminators, which are great into hordes. They have bikes, which are extremely dynamic, but a lot of people look at them as just like a worse crisis suit, but their guns are, a gun for all occasion, whereas crisis suits are very tailored for different things. But yeah, Votan doing better. Essentially, Votan was like the 3rd best gunline army. If you had Ashram
that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, Sisters is almost a gunline army now too, in what they're playing. So Ashram Time was the best gunline army. Sisters was probably the 2nd best. And then, Votan was probably the 3rd best, which is pretty surprising to me, and well done to them. One of the Tyranids made the top 10, so Tyranids are 10th. They just scraped in there. GSC made 35th, which I don't know if you talked to many of the GSC players. So I talked to quite a few, especially I was staying in the Outer Warhouse for a week before the event, getting my jet lag gone before I had to go to the big dance. And I asked a couple of them, because I know Nick has played a lot of GSC to a lot of different things, and some of the other boys like John are pretty GSC savvy. And I asked them, why wouldn't you take GSC to this? Because I think they would do extremely well. And they said it's just 8 games. Like the GSC is predicated on if you roll averages on 4+ when your units die, your army is like as good as anybody's. But in 8 games, you're probably going to have a game, if not 2, where you don't roll any 4+, and then you're Ashram Militarum with worse rules. That's a
good way of looking at it.
Yeah, your Ashram Militarum with worse rules is what it is when you don't get your units back. So they were just like, over 8 games, I just can't trust my fate to the 4+, and so they didn't take him. But still,
that's great for the Tyranids and the Genestealer cults. I mean, I'm tempted to look up that 10th place Tyranid list too, because they've been doing well enough, but we haven't seen them necessarily knocking it out of the park.
Exactly right. I think that was Sam Pope. And if you like, mate, I'll pick that up for you as we discuss the rest of these. Next up, we have Drukhari. 129th was the top place Drukhari. So, that's a bit rough. And then 24th was the top placed Eldari. So Eldari did very respectably here.
Are there in that Eldari, do you have some Yunari in there too? I'm trying to think of where these other units or other armies that, are still getting some attention just in
correct. Yeah, I don't separate them out anymore. So if there are Eldari, they will just come in as. Sorry, if there are Yunari, they will just be under the Eldari numbers.
Well, it's so commonplace in that army now. I'm just assuming that there are some.
Yeah, 100%. There would almost definitely be. It was Sam Pope with that Tyranid list, and I'll give it to you right now if you want. I just pulled it up.
Yeah.
He's playing Invasion Fleet, got a Tervagon with Adaptive Biology, a Winged Hive Tyrant or a Flyer. Dustin's not here. Alien Cunning on that one as well. 10 Hormigans, 20 termagants, 20 termagants, 20 termagants, 20 termagants. It's a carpet with a Turvagon. That's very hard to kill. Biovore, a triple Exocrine, double Lictor, a double Tyrannofex, and Venom Thropes. So actually, like, it's a sans melee, so there's no melee in here apart from being punched by a Hive Tyrant. It's just a carpet of denial, and that's the kind of list you take when you know you're going to get shot.
Yeah.
You're going to get shot a lot.
But it seems like a real fair Tyranid list. Like it does Tyranid stuff.
Yeah, it's got good shooting in triple Exocrine, double Tyrannofex, so it doesn't really struggle into the mechanized meta. Couple of lone ops for some shenanigans in the Lictors. Singo Biovore because they're still very good. 80 Termagants with the Turvagon for some recursion. Yeah, sick list. Really good list.
What a great event too. 2 games a day over 4 days. Players had a nice relaxed pace to be able to play their games and enjoy the hotel or the area around the hotel.
It was absolutely fantastic. I really like the 2 games a day format. I think it's the premium way to play top level 40k. Everyone has the time to think about all their plays, try and be perfect is the thing I like to see. I like to see players taking the time to try and do everything as well as they can. But
making it perfect. Yeah.
The Cinderella story, Folger Piles. First place Custodes representing the US of A, not taking Shield Host, taking Talons of the freaking Emperor, which is the Custodes detachment where Scissors of Silence and Custodia units are kind of buddy up and bounce off each other to get extra goodness. This list consists of 3 Blade Champions, a single unit of 4 Custodia Guard, a single Sisters of Silence Rhino, 2 Caladius Grav Tanks, 3 units of 5 Wardens, naturally to go with 3 Blade Champions, 4 Prosecutors, 2 units of 4 Witch Seekers, and Caria Draxus to go with the 4 Custodia Guard. So it is 4 alpha units or very good melee units, 3 of which can be extremely quick once per game and extremely durable once per game. 2 great battle tanks in the Caladiuses, even if, comparatively to some Lehman Russ chassis and other chassis out there, they're a little on the pricey side, but they're extremely effective. And then, 3 units of Sisters of Silence to tie the things together and be both the utility units and the things that give you a little bit of extra juice from your stratagems. So I need to take a moment to tell you about Folger and his run, because I was championing this man as soon as I saw him make it out of day 1. We had him on stream on the first game of day 2, and he played against the Blood Angels list, who was one of the best players in Spain. And I pretty much gave the guy no shot because Blood Angels versus Custodes, I'm of the opinion Blood Angels is just a faster, cheaper Custodes army. And okay, it's turn 5. Folger's gone second. He needs his opponent on his turn 5 to not score more than 5 points on secondaries. They both are going to get so the Blood Angels player, goes first in his command phase, gets 15 points on primary, and Folger's almost certainly going to get 15 points on primary in his turn. But there's not much the Blood Angels player can do about it. Folger has somewhere in the region of 5 or less models left on the table, but most of them are hidden, they're safe, and they're kind of unassailable. But Folger needs his opponent to not score more than 5 points. If this gentleman, I think his name was Borja from Spain, if he pulls 2 secondaries that score him 6 points, there's no combination of cards that Folger Piles can pull that will win him the game. His opponent pulls 2 cards, and I believe he even cycles and gets 5 point secondaries. I think it's either 2 2s or a 2 and a 3 on secondaries. Scores them both. Now, Folger, with 3 possible card draws on your secondary table, needs to pull exactly freaking containment, has to be containment for 6 points, and another 5 point secondary. And I believe he pulls, I can't remember if it was extend battle lines or secure no man's land, and ties the game. Ties it. Wow. They play again in the shadow round. Because to get out of their pool, they have to play in the shadow round.
This is when a tie was okay. Later in the rounds, ties were not okay.
Correct.
There's a special condition for resolving those ties. But this tied them.
They weren't necessarily okay with it. I was hanging out with Folger and Borja a little bit in the last round, and I was chit-chatting with them, and they were both so nervous because the only player in their pod who was undefeated was playing on one of the Spanish stream table. And if that player won, they both get knocked out. That player goes through. But if that player loses, then they have to play each other again, and the winner of those 2 goes through. And so they were nervous to have to play again, and also nervous to, have their fate out of their hands. So this is the guy who won this event, by the way. And we're talking about he didn't clean sweep this. He went through the absolute murderer's row and stress and grey hairs and fate, because he played against Borgia again. And so the undefeated player went down on stream. So Folger's got to play Borgia again. Blood Angels versus Custodes. Can lightning strike twice? Not only does it strike twice, but Folger wins by 2 points with the same thing happening. In fact, Borgia has more of his army left this time than he did last time. Borgia legitimately has 1,500 points of his army left. Folger has like literally less, like five or less models on the table, and wins it by 2 points on the bottom of turn 5 and moves on, progresses on into the undefeated bracket. Absolutely Cinderella story stuff. He then goes through like a who's who of the freaking world, and ends up playing John freaking Lennon, the runner-up from last year, on top table in one of the worst possible optical matchups, Custodes versus Astra Militarum. Almost every time, I would say Custodes go down there. In fact, I think the stats reflect somewhere in the region of it being 70-30 or even closer to 80-20 in Astartes' favor on just statistical how often they win. He wins this thing. Yes. He wins this freaking thing. He looks at the game, looks at the table, and says, if I stand back, I lose. If I push half my army, I lose. And on turn freaking 1, to win the World Championships of Warhammer, he throws his entire army at his opponent turn 1 and just believes in the auric golden armor of the Custodes.
As far as they could go, as far as he could roll, everything
everything max extension. I will say he rolled 5s or 6s on all of his advances turn 1. And so he went fast. And then John did a masterful display of control and pacing, and then shot every gun that he had. And Folger was just like, I'm gonna make 4 pluses at a 70% clip and get through this. And he did. He played to his one big out. And he did, and he won the World Championships of Warhammer. So well done to Folger Piles and his list. What do you make of it, mate? Now that I've had my little TED talk,
it was great watching all the players do exactly what they needed to do on both sides. And I'm not saying it came down to dice; it didn't, but the dice certainly helped with a bunch of saves, which gave him more material to kind of keep that press alive and into Astra Militarum. Once you start tearing them down, they do start to their effectiveness, goes down by. Almost a little bit more greater than some of the individual parts.
So there's 2 big decision points on Folger that I've identified. One was looking at the board state, the fact that he was going second, which wasn't his advantage but also disadvantage because John had locked off so much of the table, and known that if he did not take a big forward stance immediately on turn 1, he would just automatically lose the game. But in doing so, he might lose the game anyway. So he looked at his out. He played to his 1 out. And that's some of the true talents of these top table games. Everyone might look at it and be like, he just pushed it forward and just rolled 4 pluses. You have to identify that that's the best play at the time, and doing that when literally it couldn't be more on the line. You're playing for literally to become the world champion of Warhammer, and to look at that and have the intestinal fortitude to just throw it against the wall, I think is admirable as hell.
A lot of players would have not been so cavalier and would have been playing for the later game, and I think trying to inch up there a bit instead of just going completely forward and staying out in the open. So that did take some courage.
Totally agree. But all right, we have done half a freaking hour on the World Championships of Warhammer. It's time to get back to our regularly scheduled program.
Technically, we've done like 37 hours on the World Championships of Warhammer. People can check it out if they want to on the Games Workshop Twitch stream. You can see the game that we're talking about. It was great.
It was absolutely spectacular. And my heart goes out to John Lennon. So a lot of people say that, he was the bridesmaid twice. And I'm here to tell you that unfortunately he's been the bridesmaid 3 times, because there's been 3 World Championships of Warhammer. The very first one was a very small invitational that happened in New Mexico. And he unfortunately came in second then. He came in second last year, and he came in second this year. So my heart goes out to my very great friend, John Lennon.
But he has shown... not been replicated. It has not been replicated by anyone.
It may never be replicated again. It may never be again. 3 years playing at that high level for 3 years against the absolute best in the freaking world for 3 years. I'll say it again, 3 years is something special. But my heart goes out to the guy, because to come that close 3 times in a row, it's got to suck. And just shows his integrity and eternal fortitude also.
Congratulations to all the winners and all the categories, all the competitors that got to go to the event, play in the event. Like if it was amazing, tune in next year. Could try to compete for it if one of the qualifiers happens to pop up in your area with a local organizer, or come see us on the U.S. Open Series. Next event we're going to talk about is the Leicester Super Major from Leicester, England. Leicester.
Yeah, and we do
I'm
this
pretty
every
sure.
year. This is like the
I'm,
third year we've done this, and every year I'm like, Leicester.
I'm pretty
I
sure
know.
it's Leicester.
In my head, it 100% is Leicester, but
Yeah.
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 This was
Well, there's a lot of vowels in this one. So,
well,
205 players.
yeah,
7
7
round event.
rounds.
Yeah.
What are we going to say there?
Going
you want
down.
me to do it?
Yeah, I got this one. You get the
You
next
got
one.
this.
I gotta vindicate myself from
Redeem. Yeah.
last time. Yeah. So Imperial Agents 3, 9 Sisters of Battle, 7 Custodes, 6 Mechanicus, 13 Astra Militarum, 4 Grey Knights, 4 Imperial Knights, Space Marines. We've got 11 Adeptus Astartes, 7 Dark Angels, 5 Space Wolves, 6 Blood Angels, 1 Black Templar. Chaos, we have 14 Chaos Space Marines, 6,000 Suns, 10 Death Guard, 5 World Eaters, 12 Demons, 4 Chaos Knights. Xenos, 15 Necrons, 8 Orcs, 16 Tau, and 5 Votan. Hive Mind pulling us down at 13 Tyranids, 6 Gene Stealers, and 6 Gene Stealer cults. Probably more than 6 Gene Stealers, but
Yeah. One would assume.
Eldari, 2 Drakari, and 11 Eldari, bringing the podium to Tau, topping it off with 16 Necrons with 15, Chaos Space Marines 14, Tyranids and Astra Militarum tied 13, Demons at 12. So what is that? That's like 6 places there.
Yep, 6 in the top 5, and naturally because there's 200 or more players, we did do the top 5 there rather than the top 3. But wow, what a beautiful spread! All like a single increment step downs: 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. Beautiful. There's no big cliffs. There's no massive, the gates of Valhalla or some other moniker.
Yeah, having it be that where we are in kind of a like there's build archetypes, but most factions can muster up what it takes to be that archetype or compete with that archetype, I think.
Indeed. Sorry, to cough.
With this podium with Tau being the top, maybe that's a terrain choice, but Necrons are there. I'm willing to bet there's a lot of, I guess, redeployment movement. Yep, in that. And Chaos Space Marines have been a solid performer as of late.
Yeah, the Chaos Space Marines do jump out to me as what is going on there, because they were good, then they're bad, then they're good, then they're bad, and I have not identified them as being particularly like jump off the front of the stage amazing at the moment, and yet they're getting great representation here.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to build them. I mean, we've seen Predators, kind of rise to the top, and we've also seen Horde doing really well, and so there are 2, I guess, builds that have existed in the recent past that are now seemingly, I don't say relevant's a bad term, but like competitive at the high level.
Oh, even more than that. Yeah, I think there's even one more. So there's like the triple Pred, triple Vindicator. I'm just going to blow you up, and then I'm going to take all the objectives list. There's the full MSU. Like this is 6 units of Legionaries and Rhinos with rubrics. That list still sometimes has 2 or 3 Predators. And then there's the, absolute nonsense that still is the Cultist Horde rocking around with the ACDC units, that being the Accursed Cultist units, and the Traitor Guardsmen, all that stuff. And all 3 of them have really, really been performing well. Derek Apshe, who came in 8th at WCW, was playing the Horde. Josh Roberts, who's currently ranked, I think, 3rd in the ITC in the world, is the biggest proponent of the full MSU build. And then you've got everything in the middle, so really well represented out there for the Chaos Space Marines. But we have one player in attendance we're going to pull out for their list. And seeing as we have the 2nd place player in the world attending here, who has just been displaced, was number 1 in the world, and has been trading number 1 in the world for the entire season. This is Kyle Grundy, who did just have a pretty legit performance at the World Championships of Warhammer. And he played Retaliation Cadre there with his Oops All crisis suits. Like he's got seven. He had 7 commanders and like
I think there
7.
were 27 or something crisis suits in his list, or
Yeah, it
something
was
like
it
that.
was absolutely nuts. But here he's playing Carrion. He's playing much more of what we have previously seen. And of course, there was some other lists I did look at and wanted to pull out. But with Tau being the the pole position for podium faction, I thought it was a good time to look at what Kyle's doing. He's got Carrion, like I said, so not retaliation card rate, not one car. He's got Carrion with Shadow Sun and Dark Strider as his two characters. So no commanders here, 0, which means 0 crisis suits essentially.
Wonder if they're still in his luggage. And
he could be bothered unpacking them.
So like, what else we got? Crude devilfish, fine.
He just took the other half of his anyway. 2 to 10 breaches in 2 devilfish, 3 ion hammerheads, 2x10 Kroot, 10 Pathfinders, 3 Riptides, 3x3 stealth suits, and 5 Vespid. So this is such a traditional, never going to be a bad army carry-on list. The 3 Hammerheads and the 3 Riptides were really shining in when we had that, what I call the super heavy infantry meta of the Bulgrin and Deathwing Knights. And funnily enough, now we have stuff like Death Routes, which are almost as durable and very cheap. That could be something else he's hunting. But yeah, the triple Hammerhead, triple Riptides, I think is a response to the mechanized flavor of the current meta. In addition, all those units are very good into Necrons, very good into Chaos Space Marines, very good into Tyranids. They fall off a little bit of Astra Militarum. They're not amazing into Dawns and Lehman Russes because they all wound on 5s, but you have just so many shots. A lot of time they'll get over the line, and very respectable into Demons as well.
I can buy that.
Yeah.
What do you think gives him the edge into Demons?
I think I think what gives him the edge is the sheer amount of utility units that he has. 2 units of breaches and devilfish, 20 Kroot, 10 Pathfinders, 3x3 stealth suits, and 5 Vespid. They can play so much more of the board, whilst the greater demons essentially have to launch themselves at the tanks and Riptides. And so he gets to kind of play the game on his terms. Unless, of course, they have Be'lakor, in which case, bit of a different one. But in that case, he just plays the objective game and just be like, "Well, I'm going to play a game where I never have to shoot you to win." And because he's got so much utility, he can kind of do it.
That's actually what I was thinking about, how they could just be, everywhere and just stick to whatever the flips are and flip the cards and go for it.
Exactly right, mate. But he's going to do extremely well at this one. We're going to pick some winners because, of course, we're going to do a part 2 for this next week. Dustin is not here, and so Gene Still Cult has automatically been populated in there for him.
There's a pretty good population of that.
It is. There's plenty. And so because there was a decent amount of GSC, I gave him GSC over Nids because he's more GSC than Nids. But yeah, here we are. What would you like, mate?
You've just been through the gauntlet travel-wise. You can pick first this time.
Ooh, Astra Militarum. Let's back him. They may not be the going to win every event, but I back him to get a podium.
It sounds good. I'll go with Tal just at the sheer weight of numbers.
That's a fair call.
I mean, and quality. I mean, look, we know you can't beat the success that Kyle's having right now, but same time, 16 top. That's what we're going with that.
Yeah, you're backing both. You got like one of the best players in attendance playing them, and also you got the numbers behind you. So good choice there, mate. What's our
If this
last
is the first time? Yeah, if the first time you're listening to us, we predict who we think is going to win the event, or at least podium. We pick a faction or a player, whatever we want. We do a part 2 to the show on our Patreon. It's for level 2 subscribers and above, where we record a show where we look back. We look at how close we got. Did any of us did it? We give ourselves points based on how well we did. We also break down some of the winning list or some of the more interesting list from that event and break down the full top 10. Very similar to how we did for the WCW, just a little bit with a little bit of banter back and forth in there.
Oh yeah, and by a little bit he means that's most of the show.
It's an extra 20 or 30 minutes of content each and every week. So if that is something you might be interested in, maybe that's the right thing for you. Let us know. If that's not the right thing for you, please, if you listen this far, get us a like or a comment or something to tell the aggregators that other people should come and do that as well. We also do this typically at 9 p.m. Eastern time live with a great chat community. So, maybe that's your thing if this is your first time and you come check us out on YouTube live.
All right, I'm going to introduce the next one because it's from my
Nice.
country. This is Gonghammer from Wollongong, New South Wales, Australia. You see what we did there? See what we did there. 80 players and 5 rounds. What are we going to see there, brother?
I think this is your go. You go for it.
All right. So, great Mad Lad, one of our patrons, lovely Scott Duval, who is the TO of this event, sent me a little bit of info on this one. So I will give it a little bit of a read over. He's pointing out this is its own circuit. So this is a circuit ender. It's the New South Wales ranking season finale. So most of the top players in New South Wales are attending for ranking prizes and overall best in factions, etc., etc. Players from multiple states in attendance, including I think a couple of from New Zealand as well. They'll be using the World Championships of Warhammer FAQ, and the terrain is GW layouts with WTC terrain on them. So a little bit
You said a couple
some
of
pieces.
states in attendance, and I was thinking
Yeah.
like I was listing like like Washington or Oklahoma. Like wait a second.
Indeed. It will be streamed as well if you want to check it out. That'll be on Scotty D's channel, which I've forgotten the name of it. Unfortunately, Scotty is gonna be angry at me. It'll be streamed on the Australian Tabletop Wargaming Network, or Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. So go check it out there this weekend if you're a lot interested. We have 1 Sister of Battle, 1 Custody, 2 Occult Mechanicus, 8 Astra Militarum, 1 Grey Knight, 3 Imperial Knights. In Space Marines, we have 3 Adeptus Astartes, 2 Dark Angels, 2 Space Wolves, 7 Blood Angels, and 1 Black Templar. Chaos is 5 Chaos Space Marines, 1,000 Sun, 2 Death Guard, 4 World Eaters, 1 Demon, and 4 Chaos Knights. Xenos, 3 Necrons, 5 Orcs, 3 Tau, and a single Votan. Hive Mind, 6 Tyranids, 4 Jeed Steel Occults, and then lastly, 2 Drakari and 5 Eldari. That faction podium reads as Astra Militarum in pole position with 8, Blood Angels second with 7, and Tyranids third with 6. What do you make of it, mate?
Well, I mean, if you're Astra Militarum are the top right now, and if you have actually things to stage on, Blood Angels are great. Tyranids, I mean, look at this. Are we seeing a tendril of the destroyer?
Well, it's
building
essentially
across our world.
Yeah, pretty much. But although in Australia, all you need to do is just like go outside, wave around some kind of net, and you can make a Tyranid army anyway. So it's pretty cost effective. Nice. Blood Angels overwhelmingly the most taken of this Space Marine subfactions, being almost as much as all the others combined. So if you combine all the other ones, they come to 8, and there are 7 Blood Angels. So almost as much as. But yeah, there's a lot of singles here. Singles for a Sisters of Battle, which is much below what I would have assumed. Singles for Thousand Suns and Demons are pretty low as well. Single for Votan, not too surprising, because of course we know Votan costs a bit more than it does in in the Southern Hemisphere that does in the Northern Hemisphere. So Votan's actually a little bit hard for people in Australia to collect at times. But seeing as there's 2 Mechanicus players, only a single Sister of Battle is quite surprising at times to me. But it might just be. Yep.
You pulled out it says Imperial Knights here. This is Jordan McGregor's Imperial Knights, second ranked in the ITC South Pacific at the moment.
Yes.
Rocking a noble lance, but listen to this: 6 Helverns, 5 Warglaves. That's it. 10 Navy Breachers, 5 Inquisitorial Agents, a Ministorian Priest, Rogue Trader Entourage, and an Immolator. So going deep into the Imperial Agents.
Mm-hmm. Very deep, very deep. And this gentleman has been playing he hasn't been playing Knights a lot. So he's doesn't describe. I started a chat with him. He doesn't describe himself as an Imperial Knights faction expert by any means. He just jumped onto it as he was bored of playing Sisters leading up to the meta changes, but needed to play Imperium for the circuit points, because he's playing for probably best Imperium, best in faction. But this is a pretty good list that has done well in other places in Australia, where it's just playing all the Warglaves and then the Inquisitorial Agents to just really like body things up. And of course, the Inquisitorial Agents have a Warlord in it, because there's no other option when you don't take a large knight that has a character. And unlike Chaos Knights, there isn't a Warglaive or Armiger variant that has the Chaos, has the character keyword like the Stalker does. So
I don't mind this at all. I mean, I really kind of think that the large Imperial Knights have. I mean, people have been like going like Atropos and something like that occasionally, but really they just get blown up a lot. They're not taking down the gold.
Correct.
So, how do
Mm,
you take down the gold and still play that faction? Well,
spot on.
yeah, let's look
Well,
at this.
it's 11, baby knights that all have a invuln and a 6-up feel no pain. This list
OC8.
actually OC8. This list actually has a lot of control because I believe, if I remember correctly, the Road Trader entourage plus the breaches combine, and then they get infiltrate, and so you can just wall people off and take board position because you have a unit of 15 models that can just really kind of bracket a bunch of stuff and get in the way. Really strong against stuff like Wolf Jail or Space Wolves lists that need to go through and around terrain to get into action. And then like an Immolator that just rocks around with probably the Inquisitorial Agents in it, just doing a little bit of shenanigans here and there with the priest along, becomes a cute little trading unit because the Inquisitorial Agents, funnily enough, come with some okay melee weapons like Eviscerators and stuff. So, they can actually go and trade on an objective. And the Immolator removes cover for the Helverins, which is actually quite big. So the Helverins have a 1 CP stratagem that enables one or two or more of them to shoot at a target, and if they do, they get an extra armor penetration. And I believe, I can't remember if it's extra strength and armor penetration. But then the Immolator is a bit of an activator because it denies cover as well. So they go to a pseudo AP3 on their Helverin autocannons, and they actually really get to dunk on big things all of a sudden.
That
So
does
quite
seem
a little,
pretty impressive. Yeah.
yeah. So quite a little under the surface synergy here, which I think is pretty spectacular. So I think Jordan's going to do very well with it. He may not be as versed with Imperial Knights as some others, but he's still going to do pretty dang well, I believe. But time to pick some winners. And of course, Dustin already got GSC in there. I picked first last time, mate, so you can have this time.
Blood Angels.
That's exactly what I thought you were going to do.
I didn't even have to show up this week.
It's fair. You could have defaulted straight in. I'm still going with Astra Militarum. So I'm doing what you did last one, just going with the numbers. All right, my dude.
They're strong right now. Yeah, they're strong.
But that brings us to the end of the show. We would usually have a Fuego at this point, but without the visual medium, where we're not confident we could make it enjoyable, so we didn't do it.
This is normally the palate cleanser. So you know what? Reward yourself, everybody. If you've made it this far listening, just take a few moments and chill just for yourself.
Eat another turkey leg.
Yeah, have a cool glass of water and relax. You've earned it. You've made it this far in the week. Here, rest up for your next part of your journey.
By this meta chasing fireplace.
We're here to warm the soul and talk about the crunchy stats. But that is our show this week. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you. It was a pleasure hanging out with you in person in my hometown. We got to eat hamburgers.
We did, mate. It was fantastic.
I'd eat some barbecue. A lot of eating. Did a lot of things around.
It was talking and eating the weekend, or the week. Sorry.
Got to hang out with some lovely people. Such a pleasure, and cannot wait to do it again.
Absolutely. All right, my man. I think that is us all done.
Have a great rest, y'all. Everybody. We will see y'all soon.
Good night.